Welcome to Numbers Simplified. In this channel, we seek to simplify and solve numerical problems. Today, we'll be looking at financial mathematics series, specifically the advanced compound interest formula. Take note, this is part 9. Make sure to go over all the other parts prior to this one that we covered. And recall, from part 8, interest compounded yearly for future value was given to be V is equal to P times 1 plus R over I to the power N times I, where of course P is the present value or the principal, R is the decimal interest per annum, and of course N the number of years, as well as I. Take note, I is the number of periods in a year. So that's what it is. Now, of course, we are going to move on. We will start by considering the first example. Find the value of $10,000 at 7.5% per annum, compounded biannually for 3 years. And the solution. So it's always important to figure out what we are given. So we've got the P, which is the present value, $10,000, and the number of years, which is 3, R, which is 0.075 per annum as a decimal, and the I, number of periods per year. So if it is biannually, it means that we have 2 halves, the first half and the second half in each year. So in total, we would have 6 periods. Now we come to substitute into the formula. So we see that we have all those values substituted into the formula. The next thing is to simplify our working so that we have inside the parentheses or brackets 1.0375 raised to the power 6, since we have the 6 periods. 1 period is half a year. Now simplifying further, we have the answer is V being equal to $12,471.79. Let's cross over to example 2. Find the present value if the future value is $35 for 10 years at 5.6% per annum, compounded quarterly. Right, so the solution, P is $35, N is 10 years, R is 0.056, and I is 4 since we have quarters. So we know that in a year, we have 4 quarters, so that is the period. So 4 quarters in a year. Our I becomes 4. Now with that, we substitute into our formula. Alternatively, we can start by finding the P. Since we are meant to find the present value, that means that we can make P the subject of the formula from the formula that we're given. So if we divide both sides by 1 plus R over I times N to the power N times I, in that way, that's a way we can get what P is in terms of other terms. Now we can have this huge function, or we adopt the concepts that we learned from laws of indices, and I encourage you to check out our videos on indices. So we know that P can actually be expressed as that. V times 1 plus R over I raised to the power minus N times I. So that will simplify our work instead of having this huge fraction. Now we go on to substitute for all the other terms that we were given. So for V, 35,000, for R, 0.056, for I, 4, and N, 10. So simplifying further, we are going to get P being equal to $20,071.11. Now let's move on to another question. Example 3. Convert an interest rate of 10% per annum compounded monthly to an annual interest rate compounded biannually for 1 year. So from the question, we see that we are given N, which is equal to 1. R is 0.1 per annum. So we are going to equate this. The present value that we have would be a P, and the future value would be a V. However, we see that in this case, we can actually substitute for one part to have the compounded monthly, which is to say I of 12, considering as well the interest rate of 0.1 as a decimal. And on the other side, we have now biannually. So we've got 2 halves, and of course the time is still 1. Then we're looking for the R. So we can see that we can divide throughout by P. In doing so, we are going to have this stage. Now that we have that, we can remove the square root from the right hand side because we are solving for R. So we introduce the square root on both sides. This is what we did and covered in the laws of indices, and I encourage you to check that video out. So once we introduce the square root, what it does is it clears the squared on the right hand side. So we can just take that right hand side and place it on the left, and take whatever was on the left and place it to the right hand side, so that we have 1 plus r over 2 since the square root is cleared. However, the square root would divide 12 by 2 so that we get a 6. That's why we have that. And of course, shifting the 1 to the other side, since we're solving for r, we are going to have that. And now using our calculators, we are going to simplify and multiply both sides by 2 in order to clear the fraction on the left hand side and solve for r, implying that our r becomes 0.1021. Note, this one is the decimal value of the rate. So the proper rate is actually 10% or 10.21%. I had rounded up to 2 significant figures, right? So that would be our final answer. So I encourage you to check out the other playlists that we have covered thus far. They might be beneficial to you, especially if you are a mathematics student. And if you have made it thus far, I say congratulations to you. And I leave you with this following task. Find a question, post it, that involves future and present value, especially using the compounded interest. Make sure to type in your questions and your answers in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching Numbers Simplified. And make sure to like, share, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of our future uploads. And remember, God loves you.